The galaxy had been quiet for 5,000 years. Not the natural quiet of empty space, but the careful silence of fear. Every star system that held intelligent life had learned the same lesson long ago. Stay silent, or die. Commander Zeth of the Zephyrian fleet floated in his water-filled command chamber, watching the monitoring screens with his 4 eyes. His people lived in the oceans of distant worlds, but they had excellent technology for watching space. Today, something was wrong with the readings. Commander, his aide Kira swam closer, her tentacles moving nervously. We are detecting signals from the outer rim. Grid Sector 7729. Zeth's gills fluttered with worry. What kind of signals? Radio waves, television broadcasts, digital communications. Kira's voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. Someone is breaking the great silence, the great silence. Every child in the galaxy learned about it in their first lessons. 5,000 years ago, something had swept across the stars, destroying entire civilizations. The survivors had made a pact written in the blood of billions. Never again would they call attention to themselves. No radio signals, no expansion beyond home systems, no contact between species. The galaxy would stay dark and quiet until the end of time. The Watchers made sure of that. Ancient machines built by the old ones. The Watchers drifted through space like metal angels of death. They listened for any sign of galactic communication. When they found it, they acted swiftly. Entire star systems would simply vanish, turn to dust and radiation as a warning to others. Show me the source, Zeth commanded. The main screen shifted to display a small yellow star on the outer edge of the galaxy. Around it orbited several planets, including one blue world covered in water and clouds. The readings made Zeth's blood run cold. The third planet was alive with signals. Radio waves poured from its surface like light from a star. Television shows, music, news broadcasts, and stranger signals that the computers could not understand. But worst of all were the directed transmissions. Powerful radio beams aimed directly at other star systems. They are trying to contact someone, Kira whispered. They do not know about the silence. Zeth studied the data. The species on the blue planet called themselves humans. They had only recently developed radio technology. Maybe 100 years ago. They lived on just one world and had barely started exploring their own star system. They were babies, cosmically speaking, and they had no idea what they were doing. How long until the Watchers detect them? Zeth asked. Kira checked her instruments. The nearest Watcher station is 3 light-years away. The signals have already reached it. She paused, her voice growing smaller. Commander, the Watcher is moving. On the screen, a dot of light began moving toward the human star system. It looked small and harmless, but Zeth knew better. The Watcher carried weapons that could crack planets in half. It would arrive at the human world in less than 2 years, and then another species would join the long list of the dead, unless someone warned them. We cannot interfere, Kira said, reading his thoughts. The Council laws are clear. Any species that breaks the silence dies. Any species that tries to warn them dies too. Zeth knew she was right. The Galactic Council of Survivors had made the rules very simple. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay alive. It had worked for 5,000 years. But watching the innocent signals from the human world, Zeth felt something his people had not felt for 50 centuries. Shame. The humans were broadcasting music. Their radio waves carried songs and stories, messages of hope and dreams of reaching the stars. They had no idea that the galaxy was full of life. All of it hiding in terror from an ancient enemy. They thought they were alone, calling out into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. Sir, another aide swam up to them. Long-range sensors are detecting something else. What now? Zeth asked. The old quantum channels. The ones that have been quiet since the war. The aide's voice shook. Something is responding to the human signals. The main screen changed again. Deep in space, in the dark regions between galaxies, something was stirring. The instruments could barely detect it, but the patterns were unmistakable. Ancient quantum signatures, the same ones found in the oldest war records. That is impossible, Kira breathed. They were destroyed. The old ones made sure of it. Not destroyed, Zeth said slowly, understanding flooding through him. Sleeping. Waiting. He looked at the human world, still broadcasting its innocent signals into space. And now something has heard them. The quantum readings grew stronger. Whatever was out there in the dark was waking up, drawn by the human radio waves like a predator following the scent of prey. Soon it would begin moving toward the human star system. The Watchers would arrive first and destroy the humans, but it might already be too late. The damage was done. For the first time in 5,000 years, the things that had nearly destroyed the galaxy were stirring again. "We have to warn the Council," Kira said. "Yes," Zeth agreed. "And we have to decide what to do about the humans." As they swam back toward the communication chamber, Zeth wondered if the Great Silence was about to end. The humans had no idea what they had started. Their simple radio signals had broken a peace that had lasted longer than their entire civilization. But perhaps that was not entirely a bad thing. The galaxy had been hiding for 5,000 years, and still the ancient enemy had found them again. Maybe it was time to try something different. Maybe it was time to stop running and start fighting. But first, someone had to survive long enough to do the fighting. The humans had maybe 2 years before the Watcher arrived. 2 years to learn the truth about the galaxy, to prepare for what was coming, and to decide whether they would hide like everyone else or stand and face the darkness. Zeth looked at the readings one more time. The humans were still broadcasting, still sending their messages of hope into space. They had no weapons that could hurt a Watcher, no shields that could protect them from the ancient enemy stirring in the dark. All they had was courage, and the strange idea that someone out there might want to be their friend. It was not much, but maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. The Great Silence was ending. The question now was whether anyone would survive to see what came next. Deep in space, the Watcher continued its journey toward the human world, its ancient weapons charging for another act of extermination. Behind it, in the dark between galaxies, something much worse began to move. The humans kept broadcasting, unaware that their simple signals had just changed the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The age of silence was over. The age of consequences had begun. Dr. Sarah Chen had always loved the quiet hours at the radio telescope. While the rest of the world slept, she listened to the universe. Tonight was different, though. Tonight the universe seemed to be listening back. "Computer, run that sequence again," she said, staring at the data on her screen. The pattern appeared again, hidden in what most people would call cosmic static. But Sarah had spent 10 years studying background radiation, and she knew this was not natural. The signal was too organized, too deliberate. It was mathematics, pure and beautiful, like someone had written a poem in numbers and broadcast it across space. The sequence started simple. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The Fibonacci sequence, something any mathematician would recognize. But then it got more complex. Prime numbers, then geometric ratios, then something that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. It was pi, calculated to 1,000 decimal places. Someone out there was showing off. "Incredible," she whispered. This was proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Someone had sent this signal, and they wanted to show that they understood mathematics just like humans did. Sarah looked at the timestamp. The signal had been broadcasting for a long time, maybe centuries or even longer. It was very faint, probably coming from outside the galaxy. Whoever sent it was patient, sending the same mathematical proof over and over, waiting for someone smart enough to notice. Well, Sarah had noticed. Now it was time to answer. She began typing, setting up a response transmission. She would send back the same mathematical sequences, showing that humans understood them. Then she would add something new, maybe the first few thousand digits of E, to show that humans had their own mathematical knowledge to share. "Computer, prepare to transmit on the same frequency." As she worked, Sarah thought about how this moment would change everything. First contact with an alien civilization. The newspapers would go crazy. The government would want to take over. Scientists around the world would demand to see the data, but right now, in this quiet room, it was just Sarah and the voice from the stars. She finished programming the response and checked it twice. Mathematics was a universal language. If these aliens were smart enough to send the original signal, they would understand what humans were sending back. "Computer, transmit." The radio telescope sent Sarah's message into space. A beam of organized radio waves carrying humanity's answer to the mathematical puzzle. Sarah smiled, imagining the aliens receiving the signal, maybe getting excited that someone had finally responded after all these years. She had no idea what she had just done. 3 hours later, Captain Zara Okafor was having a very bad night. The screens in the Earth Defense Force Command Center were showing impossible readings. Objects were appearing throughout the solar system, huge structures that had been invisible just hours before. "Report," Zara demanded, walking quickly to the main display. "Ma'am, we count at least 12 objects," Sergeant Martinez said, his voice tight with stress. "They decloaked simultaneously at 0347 hours. Each one is approximately 5 kilometers long." Zara studied the tactical display. The objects were scattered through the solar system, positioned near major planets and asteroid belts. They did not look like ships. They looked like buildings, geometric structures with too many angles, designs that hurt to look at directly. "Any response to our hails?" she asked. "Nothing, ma'am. But they are scanning us. Very detailed scans, like they are taking inventory." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. In her 15 years with the Defense Force, she had never seen anything like this. The objects were clearly artificial, clearly alien, and clearly had technology far beyond anything humans possessed. "Get me a connection to Dr. Chen at the radio telescope facility," she ordered. 20 minutes later, Sarah was staring at the same tactical display, her face pale with shock. "I don't understand," she said. "My signal was a response to their mathematical sequence. It should have been friendly contact." "Doctor, when exactly did you send your response?" Zara asked. Sarah checked her notes. 0311 hours. The alien objects decloaked at 0347 hours, 36 minutes after your transmission. Zara turned to face Sarah. "Doctor, I don't think those objects are here to make friends." On the main screen, one of the alien structures began to move. It was enormous, dwarfing the largest human spacecraft, but it moved with impossible grace. As they watched, panels opened along its surface, revealing weapons that looked like crystals of frozen lightning. "Ma'am," Martinez called out, "we're receiving a transmission." "From the aliens?" "No, ma'am. From outside the solar system. It's coming in on multiple frequencies, and it's directed specifically at Earth." The main speakers crackled to life. The voice that came through was clearly not human, speaking in a language that sounded like water flowing over rocks, but the computer was translating in real time. "People of Earth, you have made a terrible mistake. The signal you answered was not a greeting. It was a call for feeding. You have told the Devourers where to find you." Zara felt her blood turn to ice. "Who are you?" "I am Cathara of the Zephyrian fleet. My people have been watching your system. We are breaking 5,000 years of silence to warn you. The structures in your system are watchers, built by our ancestors to destroy any species that breaks the Great Silence." "What Great Silence?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Long ago, entities from outside our reality nearly destroyed all life in the galaxy. The survivors made a pact. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay alive. Your radio signals violated that pact. The Watchers came to destroy you before you could attract the attention of the Devourers." On screen, more weapons were emerging from the alien structures. The crystal devices were beginning to glow with deadly light. "But something has gone wrong," Cathara continued. "Your response to the mathematical signal has awakened something that should have stayed sleeping. The Devourers are coming. They feed on reality itself, and your answer has given them a path into this dimension." "How long do we have?" Zara asked. "The Watchers will attack in minutes. They believe destroying your world quickly will stop the Devourers from fully manifesting, but it may already be too late." Sarah stared at the data from her telescope. The mathematical signal was growing stronger, and now she could see what she had missed before. Hidden in the elegant equations was something else, something that made her skin crawl. The mathematics were not just showing intelligence, they were showing hunger. "The signal," she said. "It was not from another civilization. It was bait." "Yes," Cathara replied sadly, "and your people took it." The first Watcher began charging its weapons. Across the solar system, the other structures followed suit. In less than an hour, Earth would be a burned cinder floating in space. But that might be the kindest fate available, because in the deep space beyond Pluto, something was beginning to tear through the walls of reality itself. The Devourers had found a new feeding ground, and humanity's innocent response to a mathematical puzzle had given them the key. Sarah looked at Zara, seeing her own horror reflected in the captain's eyes. They had tried to make first contact with an alien civilization. Instead, they had invited cosmic predators to dinner, and Earth was the main course. Admiral Elena Vasquez had 30 minutes to save her planet, and she was not planning to go quietly. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," she broadcast to every human vessel in the solar system. "Unknown hostiles are preparing to attack Earth. All civilian traffic is to evacuate immediately. Military vessels will engage. It was not much of a fleet. Humanity had 12 warships designed for fighting other humans, not alien monsters. The largest was barely 200 meters long. Against the 5-kilometer Watcher structures, they looked like children's toys. Admiral, her aide Commander Torres said quietly, our weapons cannot even scratch those things. Then we will have to be creative, Elena replied. She had spent her entire career preparing for wars between human nations. She had never imagined fighting alien machines built by a civilization that died before humans discovered fire. But the principles of war remained the same. Find the enemy's weakness and hit it hard. Tactical. Show me detailed scans of the nearest Watcher. The main screen displayed the alien structure in perfect detail. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, made of materials that seemed to bend light around them. The crystal weapons along its hull were almost fully charged, preparing to reduce Earth to ash and vapor. There, Elena pointed to a section near the rear of the structure. Those look like engine housings. And there, sensor arrays. Whatever these things are, they still need to move and see. Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Zephyrian ship, Torres reported. Cathara's translated voice filled the command center. Admiral Vasquez, you must not attack the Watchers. They are trying to save the galaxy by destroying your world quickly. If you resist, they will use more powerful weapons that could tear holes in space itself. Then what do you suggest? Elena asked angrily. That we just sit here and die? There is another way. My people have prepared a place called the Nexus, hidden in deep space. If your leaders come with us now, we can preserve some of humanity while the Watchers cleanse your world. Elena looked around her command center at the faces of her crew. They were scared, but they were not broken. These were the people who had climbed out of caves and built cities, who had split the atom and reached for the stars. They were not the type to run and hide. Thank you for the offer, Elena said calmly. But humans do not abandon their world. We fight for it. You cannot win, Cathara protested. No species has ever defeated the Watchers. No species has ever been human, Elena replied, cutting the channel. She turned to her tactical officer. Launch everything we have at the nearest Watcher's engine section. Spread the attack across multiple targets. Make them think we're more dangerous than we look. The human fleet attacked like a swarm of angry hornets. Nuclear missiles, kinetic projectiles, and laser beams struck the Watcher from every direction. The alien structure's shields absorbed most of the damage, but Elena noticed something important. The Watcher paused its charging sequence to deal with the attack. It has to prioritize, she realized. It cannot charge its main weapons while managing defense systems. Ma'am, her sensor operator called out. Something new is happening near Jupiter. Elena looked at the long-range display and felt her blood freeze. Space itself was tearing open like fabric, revealing a darkness so complete it hurt to look at. Something was pushing through from the other side. Something that made the Watchers look small and harmless. The first devourer emerged from the tear in reality. It was not a ship or a creature in any sense humans could understand. It was geometry made flesh, angles that existed in too many dimensions, a thing that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Looking at it directly made Elena's vision blur and her mind struggle to process what she was seeing, but she could understand its intent perfectly. It was hungry and it was looking at Earth like a man looks at a feast. All ships, new priority target, Elena commanded. Forget the Watchers. Hit that thing with everything we have. The human fleet redirected their fire toward the devourer. Nuclear explosions bloomed against its impossible surface. Laser beams bent around it like light around a black hole. Kinetic projectiles simply vanished when they touched it. But something unexpected happened. The devourer recoiled. Did we hurt it? Torres asked, amazed. No, Elena said slowly, studying the readings. We annoyed it. The devourer had expected to feed unopposed like it had 5,000 years ago. It was not used to prey that fought back. More importantly, it was not used to minds that could look at it without going insane. Elena keyed her communicator to broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Vasquez to all human forces. The enemy can be hurt. They are not gods, they are just very old bullies. Show them what happens when they pick on the wrong species. Across the solar system, human ships began converging on the devourer. They came from mining stations in the asteroid belt, from research facilities on Mars, from patrol boats near Venus. They were cargo haulers and pleasure craft, science vessels and ore processors. None of them were warships, but all of them carried humans who were very, very angry. The Watchers, meanwhile, were having problems of their own. Their programming told them to destroy Earth quickly, to prevent the Devourers from fully manifesting, but the humans kept attacking them, forcing them to divert power to shields and defensive systems. Worse, human tactics made no sense. They attacked in seemingly random patterns, struck targets that seemed unimportant, and refused to retreat even when they were clearly losing. Most disturbing of all, the humans showed no signs of the madness that usually overcame species when they encountered Devourers. They looked directly at the reality-warping entities and remained sane enough to keep fighting. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was making a discovery that would change everything. Working frantically in her laboratory while explosions lit up the sky outside, she had been analyzing the quantum patterns around the Devourers. What she found should have been impossible. "Captain Okafor," she called on her communicator. "I need to speak to Admiral Vasquez immediately." "Doctor, the Admiral is kind of busy right now," Zara replied, ducking as debris fell from another explosion. "This cannot wait. I know why humans can look at the Devourers without going insane." 5 minutes later, Elena was listening to Sarah's explanation while her fleet fought for its life around Jupiter. "Human brains evolved differently," Sarah said quickly. "We developed consciousness in a unique way that makes us partially exist outside normal space-time. That is why we have imagination, creativity, the ability to think about things that do not exist. It is also why the Devourers cannot drive us mad." "What does that mean for the fight?" Elena asked. "It means we are the only species in the galaxy that can face them directly. Everyone else goes insane or becomes paralyzed with fear. But we can fight them." Elena looked at her tactical display. More tiers in space were opening. More Devourers were pushing through. The Watchers were finally getting their weapons charged, preparing to glass Earth regardless of the consequences. But her people were still fighting, still refusing to give up. "Doctor," Elena said, "send everything you have learned to the Zephyrian ship. Tell them that humanity is not running away. Tell them that if they want to save the galaxy, they better find more people willing to stand and fight." "What about us?" Sarah asked. Elena smiled grimly as another nuclear explosion lit up space around the nearest Devourer. "We are going to do what humans do best. We are going to be absolutely too stubborn to die." The battle for Earth was just beginning, but already the galaxy was starting to learn something it had forgotten during 5,000 years of hiding. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and humans were very, very good at offense. Captain Marcus Torres had been to many strange places in his military career, but nothing had prepared him for the Nexus. The hidden station existed in a pocket of folded space, invisible to normal sensors. It was huge, easily the size of a small moon, built from the combined technologies of dozens of species. As his shuttle approached the docking bay, Marcus could see representatives from across the galaxy: the aquatic Zephyrians, the crystalline Vorthan, the energy beings called the Lumina, and many others he could not identify. All of them were staring at him like he was either a hero or a madman. "Welcome to the Nexus, Captain Torres," Kethara greeted him as he stepped off the shuttle. The Zephyrian diplomat wore a water-filled environmental suit that allowed her to move freely in the station's atmosphere. "We have been waiting 5,000 years for someone like you." "Someone like me?" Marcus asked. "Someone willing to fight instead of hide?" Kithira led him through corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. They all watched the human with a mixture of fear and hope. Marcus had studied the briefing materials during the journey, so he understood why. These species had survived the first war with the Devourers by running away and staying hidden. Now a young species was telling them it was time to fight back. The main council chamber was enormous, with seating designed for beings of all shapes and sizes. At the center stood a holographic display showing the current situation in Earth's solar system. It was not good. "Your people have been fighting for 3 days," said Elder Vorthak of the Crystal Beings. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. "They have lost half their fleet, and more Devourers arrive every hour. Yet they continue to resist." Marcus studied the tactical display. Earth's defensive fleet was indeed taking heavy losses, but they were also learning. Human tactics were evolving in real time, adapting to weapons and enemies they had never seen before. More importantly, the Devourers seemed confused by the human response. "They do not understand why we are not afraid," Marcus said. "Are you not afraid?" asked Lumina 7, the energy being who spoke through controlled light patterns. Of course we are afraid, Marcus replied. Fear keeps you alive. But fear does not make decisions for us. Around the chamber, the alien representatives stirred uneasily. Marcus realized they did not understand the difference. For 5,000 years, fear had made every decision for them. Captain Torres, Cathara said formally, the Galactic Council has a proposal. We will provide you with the location of our most powerful weapons, technologies developed during the First War. In exchange, humanity will lead a new offensive against the Devourers. What kind of weapons? Marcus asked. Elder Vorthak gestured, and the holographic display changed to show technical specifications that made Marcus's eyes widen. Reality bombs that could fold space itself into a weapon, ships that moved by rewriting the laws of physics locally, armor that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. These are incredible, Marcus breathed. Why have you not used them? Because, Lumina 7 replied sadly. We forgot how to be brave enough to use them. Marcus looked around the chamber at the faces of dozens of species, all of them survivors of the greatest war in galactic history. They had preserved their knowledge and their weapons, but they had lost something else, the will to fight. There is something else you should know, Cathara said quietly. Our long-range sensors have detected movement in 7 other galaxies. The Devourers are not just returning here. They are manifesting everywhere, drawn by the dimensional breach your people created. The holographic display expanded to show the local galactic cluster. Red dots marked Devourer manifestations across millions of light years. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a lead blanket. How many people are we talking about? He asked. Trillions, Elder Vorthak said simply. Every intelligent species in known space. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Earth, about Admiral Vasquez and her brave fleet, about Dr. Chen and her innocent desire to talk to the stars. They had triggered this crisis, but they had also shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. Sometimes you have to stand up to bullies, no matter how big they are. We will do it, he said finally, but we are going to do this our way. What do you mean? Cathara asked. You have been thinking about this wrong for 5,000 years. You see the Devourers as an enemy to be destroyed. But what if they are not really enemies? What if they are just hungry? The chamber erupted in shocked voices from dozens of species. Impossible, Elder Vorthak declared. The Devourers consume reality itself. They cannot be reasoned with. Maybe, Marcus said calmly. Or maybe no one has ever tried the right approach. He gestured to the tactical display, changing it to show the quantum readings from the Devourer manifestations. Look at these energy patterns. They are not random destruction. There is a pattern here, almost like they are trying to reshape local space-time into something specific. You think they are trying to communicate? Lumina 7 asked, her light patterns shifting to show intense interest. I think they are trying to survive, Marcus replied. Dr. Chen's research suggests the Devourers exist partially outside normal reality. What if their own universe is dying? What if they are refugees, not invaders? The idea sent shockwaves through the chamber. For 5,000 years, every species had assumed the Devourers were simply evil. The possibility that they might be desperate instead changed everything. Even if that is true, Cathara said slowly, they are still destroying entire civilizations. Because they do not know how to exist in our reality without destroying it, Marcus said. But what if we could teach them? You are talking about the impossible, Elder Vorthak protested. Creating a compatible environment for beings that exist outside normal space-time. Impossible for one species, maybe. But we have the combined knowledge of the entire galaxy here. If we work together, really work together instead of just hiding. Marcus let the idea hang in the air. Around the chamber, the representatives began to whisper among themselves in dozens of languages. The concept was so radical it had never occurred to them. There is another problem, Cathara said finally. Even if we could create such an environment, the Devourers would have to stop their attacks long enough for us to implement it. They show no signs of slowing down. That is where my people come in, Marcus said with a grim smile. Humans are very good at getting someone's attention. The holographic display shifted back to Earth's solar system, where Admiral Vasquez's fleet was still fighting against impossible odds. They were losing, but they were not giving up. More importantly, they were learning how to hurt the Devourers, even if they could not yet destroy them. Your people cannot hold out much longer, Lumina 7 observed. They do not have to hold out, Marcus replied. They just have to hold on long enough for the rest of you to remember how to fight. He turned to address the entire chamber. For 5,000 years you have all been victims. You let fear make your choices. Let terror decide your fate. But that ends today. Today you get to choose whether you want to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Elder Vorthak's crystal form chimed thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing? Simple, Marcus said. We go back to Earth with the biggest fleet this galaxy has ever seen. We make the Devourers pay attention to us instead of just feeding randomly. And while we have their attention, our best scientists work on building them a new home. And if they refuse to leave? Kethara asked. Marcus thought about Admiral Vasquez still fighting hopeless odds with a smile on her face. He thought about Dr. Chen, whose curiosity had started this whole crisis but who was now working around the clock to find solutions. He thought about the billions of humans who had no idea their planet was under attack, but who would undoubtedly face the crisis with the same stubborn courage their species was known for. Then we show them what happens when you threaten humanity's friends, he said simply. The chamber fell silent as the alien representatives considered this radical new approach. For 5,000 years they had hidden from their problems. Now a species that had barely learned to leave its own planet was suggesting they solve their problems instead. It was either the bravest idea any of them had ever heard, or the most insane. With humans, it was often hard to tell the difference. The combined fleet that emerged from hyperspace near Earth was the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Ships from 47 different species, carrying weapons that had not been fired in 5,000 years, all following the lead of Admiral Elena Vasquez and her battered human fleet. Elena stood on the bridge of the new flagship, a massive Zephyrian dreadnought that had been modified with human tactical systems. Around her, alien officers worked alongside human crew members, sharing knowledge and strategies that should have taken decades to develop. Status report, Elena commanded. All fleets report ready, Commander Torres replied from his station. We have 1,500 ships armed with reality disruption weapons, dimensional shields, and quantum torpedoes. The Devourers will not find us as easy to digest as they expect. Through the main view screen, Elena could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel surrounded by nightmare. 7 massive Devourers circled her homeworld, their impossible geometries casting shadows that hurt to look at. They had been feeding slowly, draining energy from Earth's electromagnetic field and causing massive storms across the planet's surface. But they had not destroyed the world. Elena suspected they were saving it for last, like a predator playing with its food. Dr. Chen, what is the status of Project Haven? Elena asked. Sarah's voice came through the communicator from the science vessel where she was working with researchers from across the galaxy. We are making progress, Admiral. The theoretical framework is sound. We can create a pocket universe with modified physical laws that should allow the Devourers to exist without consuming other realities. How long do you need? 48 hours minimum, maybe 72 if we run into problems. Elena looked at the tactical display, 7 Devourers, plus the one still manifesting from dimensional tiers throughout the solar system. Her fleet was powerful, but she was not sure they could hold the line for 3 days against enemies that could rewrite reality. Then we better get their attention, she said grimly. The attack began with a precision that surprised even Elena. Ships from different species worked together like they had been training for years instead of days. 4th crystal ships focused reality disruption beams on the nearest Devourer. Lumina energy beings coordinated shield frequencies across the entire fleet. Zephyrian warships provided covering fire while human ships darted in and out like attack dogs. The Devourers reacted with shock and rage. For 5,000 years they had fed unopposed. Now they were facing organized resistance from creatures they had written off as cosmic insects. The first Devourer turned its attention away from Earth and focused on the fleet. Reality twisted around it as it prepared to unleash weapons that could unravel matter at the subatomic level. All ships, implement protocol chaos, Elena ordered. The galactic fleet scattered in seemingly random directions, but Elena knew there was method to the madness. Human tactical doctrine emphasized unpredictability. If the enemy could not predict your next move, they could not counter it effectively. The Devourer's reality warping attack struck empty space as the fleet reformed behind it. concentrating fire on what Elena's sensors indicated might be a weak point in its dimensional structure. The creature screamed, not with sound but with vibrations that shook space itself. Elena felt the psychic pressure trying to invade her mind, but human stubbornness proved stronger than alien mental attacks. "Target confirmed," she announced to the fleet. "They can be hurt. Keep hitting them in the same spots." Across the solar system, similar battles were playing out as the Galactic fleet engaged every devourer they could find. Ships were lost, entire crews consumed by reality storms, but the fleet held together. More importantly, they were learning how to fight these ancient enemies. On the science vessel, Dr. Chen and her team worked frantically to complete Project Haven. The theoretical physics involved were staggering. They were essentially trying to create a new universe from scratch, one with different rules that would allow the devourers to exist in their natural state without destroying everything around them. "The quantum matrix is stabilizing," reported Dr. Vorthis, a crystal being whose species had been studying dimensional physics for millions of years. "But we need more computational power to solve the space-time equations." "Use my ship's navigation computers," offered Captain Kira of the Zephyrian research vessel, "and link them to the human quantum processors." Species that had not spoken to each other in millennia were now sharing their most advanced technologies, united by the simple human idea that problems existed to be solved. But the devourers were learning too. After 2 days of constant battle, they began coordinating their attacks, working together instead of feeding randomly. Worse, they were calling for reinforcements. "Admiral," Torres reported grimly, "long-range sensors show dimensional tiers opening in 12 other star systems. More devourers are manifesting." Elena studied the tactical display. At this rate, the galaxy would be overrun within a week. They needed to end this now one way or another. "Dr. Chen, what is your status?" "We're close, Admiral. The pocket universe is almost ready, but we need to communicate with the devourers somehow, make them understand what we're offering." Elena looked at the nearest devourer, a creature of living geometry that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. "How did you talk to something like that?" "What if we don't need to talk to them?" she said suddenly. "What if we just show them?" "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "You said they're trying to reshape reality into something they can survive in, right? What if we give them a demonstration? Show them we've built them a better option?" The idea was completely insane. It meant opening a portal to the new pocket universe right in the middle of a battle, with no guarantee that the devourers would understand what they were seeing. But Elena had spent the last week watching humans and aliens work together to accomplish the impossible. Maybe it was time to try something that had never been done before. "Do it," she ordered. The combined scientific teams activated Project Haven, Space, twisted and folded as a new universe bloomed into existence. A pocket of modified reality where the physical laws had been carefully adjusted to accommodate beings like the devourers. The effect was immediate. Every devourer in the solar system stopped what it was doing and turned toward the new portal. Elena could feel their attention like a physical weight. Ancient minds suddenly focused on this unprecedented gift. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nearest devourer began to move toward the portal, its impossible geometry shifting and changing as it approached the new reality. "It's working," Sarah whispered. "They understand." One by one, the devourers began entering the pocket universe. As they did, their forms stabilized, becoming less painful to look at. In their new home, they could exist in their natural state without destroying everything around them. But the last devourer hesitated at the portal's edge. Elena realized it was trying to communicate. Patterns of quantum static that the ship's computers struggled to translate. "Admiral," the communication officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the devourer." The message was simple, translated from quantum mathematics into human language. "Thank you." Elena felt tears running down her cheeks as the last devourer disappeared into its new home. Around the solar system, the dimensional tiers were closing as the remaining creatures followed their fellows into the pocket universe. "Fleet status report," she called out. "All devourers have withdrawn, Admiral. Earth is secure. The dimensional incursions have stopped." Elena looked around her bridge at the mix of human and alien crew members, all of them exhausted but smiling. They had done something that no one in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had solved a 5,000-year-old problem, not by fighting harder, but by thinking differently, Dr. Chen, Elena said. Prepare a full report for the Galactic Council. Include specifications for the pocket universe technology. If this works here, we can use it to help other Devourer manifestations across the galaxy. Already on it, Admiral. We're also getting some interesting readings from the pocket universe. The Devourers seem to be building something in there. Building what? We're not sure yet, but the quantum signatures suggest they're creating structures that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It might be cities or art or something we don't have words for yet. Elena smiled. After 5,000 years of being seen as cosmic destroyers, the Devourers were finally free to be whatever they actually were. 6 months later, Elena stood in the new Galactic Communication Center, built in Earth orbit as humanity's gift to the galaxy. The age of enforced silence was over. Species from across the stars were talking to each other again, sharing knowledge and friendship instead of hiding in fear. The motto carved above the main entrance read, "When the universe calls, answer. When it threatens, stand and fight. When it needs help, lend a hand." Through the center's massive windows, Elena could see ships from dozens of species coming and going, carrying messages and trade goods and, most importantly, hope. The pocket universe containing the Devourers was stable and growing, and the creatures inside were beginning to communicate with the outside galaxy in ways no one had expected.